I'm entitling this particular devotion, Can God Repurpose You? When I use that word repurpose, it's just, can God adapt you? Are you willing to be adapted for use in areas that are beyond what you deem as your purpose? We spend a lot of time trying to search and find our purpose, staying in our lane, etc. But the question that I'm posing today for this devotional, can God repurpose you? I'm reading a passage, and I want you to take time today, in addition to your chronological reading, I want you to read all of 1 Corinthians chapter number 12. Particularly, I'm going to read today verse number 20. It says, "But now are they many members, but yet one body." Many members, but yet one body. As many of you know, my sister had triple bypass surgery this week. It was scheduled to be quadruple bypass, but when they opened her chest, they saw that one of the arteries did not need to be bypassed. So they did triple bypass surgery on my sister on Monday. They had discovered that there were 3 of the main arteries to her heart that were blocked, which could have been fatal. But instead of giving up on her and saying there's nothing we can do, they performed a remarkable procedure. They took arteries from her leg and used them to bypass the blocked ones in her chest. It's amazing what medicine can do. They took arteries from her leg and used those arteries to bypass the blocked arteries in her chest. And that's a profound image. And whenever y'all know that whenever I am just living on a daily basis, I am trying to hear, what is God saying? What is the message of God in all of this? And it's a profound image there of what Paul describes in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. He says that the body is one, but made of many members. And when one part is failing, another part steps in to keep life flowing. When you read 1 Corinthians chapter 12 today, I want you to notice a few things that I want to bring out in this devotional. One is that the body is unified, but it is a diverse system. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 through 14, that the body of Christ is one, though made of many parts, just like our physical body is. Each part has its own function, but all of the functions are interconnected. In my sister's case, the leg was not created to serve the heart. That was not its created purpose. But when the heart was in crisis, the leg gave up a part of itself for the good of the body. That was not its intended, that was not its original created purpose. But when the rest of the body, when the heart was in trouble, the leg sacrificed in order that the body might live. That's what leadership is. That's what we do in our families if we are willing to be repurposed. The arteries in her leg had to be repurposed for the life of the entire body. See, we may not all have the same gifts. We might not all have the same positions or roles, but we're called to the same mission to keep the body alive and thriving. And sometimes God will use the least likely member to perform the most life-giving function. None of us today are walking around just praising God about the arteries in our legs, but it was the artery in her leg that was used to save her life. It's a unified body, even though it is very diverse. Another thing I want you to notice is that when one part hurts, the whole body responds. Whether it's your family or your church or whatever you're a part of, when one part hurts, the rest of the body ought to respond. When you read verse 26 out of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, it says, and whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it. My sister's heart was in trouble, but her legs had to sacrifice to help. She didn't just need a heart specialist. She needed a whole body solution. And that's where we find ourselves often as leaders in the church, as leaders in our family, as leaders in our community. We often expect one department or one person or one leader to solve everything. But sometimes the breakthrough comes when another member steps in to support, to give, and to carry the load. May not be your stated purpose, may not be the purpose you have deemed to be your purpose, but God has to have us to step forward and do what is necessary to keep the body, to keep the family, to keep the community alive. So don't underestimate your contribution just because it's not up front or center stage. As I said already, none of us are walking around today bragging about the arteries in our leg, but that may be the very thing that has to save your life. Another thing I want you to notice, even though I've mentioned it a few times already, every member has purpose, even when we are repurposed. It struck me very severely and very directly, and sticking with me even now, how the leg arteries were repurposed for something they were not originally intended to do. But they were still essential to her healing. And that's how God works in the body of Christ. He takes gifts, he takes experiences, he takes people from one area and repositions and repurposes them for another area. Rather than sitting back watching the body die, we have to be willing to be repurposed to keep the body alive. And you can be entering a season right now where God is calling you to serve in a new capacity. So lend your strength there. If you see someone else is weak, don't just sit back and watch them uh, fall and the rest of the body suffer because they fail. No, that's when we are repurposed. It may stretch us. It may even hurt us. We may not, it may be an unfamiliar place for us. That artery, if it could talk from her leg, would probably say, I'm not supposed to be up here at the heart. But if it keeps the body alive, then that's where you are repurposed because you have one mission, and that is to keep the body alive. And when we respond in that way, when we're willing to be repositioned and repurposed, that's when life starts to flow. I am convinced that the thing that is hurting the body of Christ right now is not that many people have not found their purpose. It's not that many people have not found their calling. It's that people have not been willing to be repositioned or repurposed. And sometimes it may make you feel like, well, this is not what I was called to do. This is not my gifting. You might be keeping the body alive by being willing to be repurposed. My sister could have died had it not been for an artery from her leg. When I visited her yesterday, all the cutting they did in her chest, all the opening they did in her chest, all the tubes they put in her neck and all of that. The only place I saw blood was on her leg, the place that had to be repositioned, the place that had to be cut so that the rest of her body could live. And sometimes it may cause a little blood for us. Sometimes it may cause us to be a little bit inconvenienced. But we have to ask ourselves, will this save my family? Am I willing now to be repositioned and repurposed so that my family can be saved, so that my church can survive, so that the body of Christ can live? Or am I just so convinced that now I'm a businessman? I don't have time to be a church janitor. Can God repurpose you? That's the question today.